Dear listeners, I have a confession to make. While for decades I've been jutting around classrooms, lecture halls, man caves, forums, and now YouTube, claiming to be an RPG enthusiast, until recently I hadn't touched one of the genre's greatest hidden gems, Dragon's Dogma. You see, the original came out at an awkward time for me and many other RPG fans. Wedged between behemoths like Skyrim and The Witcher 3, but with far too much jank and not enough mass appeal to stand out, Dragon's Dogma was simply forgotten by most, and I was part of this crowd. That is, until out of curiosity, I decided to watch a 10-minute IGN first impressions video on Dragon's Dogma 2. And let's say, things didn't end there. In the blink of an eye, the minutes I initially invested turned into hours, and I couldn't help myself from obsessively consuming every bit of preview and speculation content I could find. Eventually, I broke from the grip of this irrational hype, but reflecting on the experience, I couldn't help but wonder what I might have missed. Plus, when I look for answers to simple questions like, how do pawns work? Let's say the projectiles that came up weren't from a dragon. So I jumped straight into Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. But my experience was far wilder than I could have imagined. Things started off normal enough. When I first loaded the game, I was given an instant reminder that this was 2014. The dated graphics rained down on me with a greater fury than the fire-breathing dragon and hordes of enemies I was simultaneously introduced to. And the world seemed to be trapped in a miasma that spewed forth generic dialogue over and over again without reprieve.
Now choose, flee, or step forth. Take hold of what lies beyond. Claim mastery over the eternal ring.
I could do naught while lines like "Stay, hold fast, arisen" and "Bless the Maker" were launched towards me faster than an Israeli strike on a primary school. But I held on, and thankfully this trial would soon come to its natural end, when I arrived at a mysterious door and was transported to another body in what seemed like a seaside resort, luckily not a British one. Despite appearances, however, things were not much better here. This world seemed to be infected by the same miasma of bad dialogue that had so greatly afflicted my journey so far. And I could tell a dragon attack was nigh. The juxtaposition of cute kids, a hot chick, and a vague warning of calamity were clear signs that I was in for a fun day and the village wasn't. I've seen this jig before. Soon a dragon would most likely emerge and all would be slaughtered apart from myself, who as a natural consequence of my bravery will be rewarded with completely awesome abilities and of course a burning desire to bring peace to the unnamed realm. When the dragon arrived as expected, terrorizing the village, I knew this was my payday. So I gladly took up the mantle of the lone hero and fought with bravery and tenacity. And in response, the dragon brutally ripped out my heart with a confusing mix of sensuality and comic relief, sparing the entire village in the process. Now you can imagine that after such a terrible injustice, I was naturally devastated and in shock. This was supposed to be my hero's journey, the march of the sole survivor, not the torment of the sole victim. So I was determined to find justice by whatever means necessary. And as an emotionally intelligent man with years of therapy under my belt, I knew the only way to control my burning desire for justice was not to bottle my feelings, but instead deal with them headfirst. So I unleashed fury on society, becoming a menace. No pot, pan, or fisherman was safe from my wrath, and I smashed crates like an unstoppable force of nature. But alas, no matter how many fishermen I tormented, guys I harassed, and fresh fruit I decimated, salvation would not find me. But as they say, miracles often happen at your worst. And just as I was about to leave for the city gates to lunge myself off a cliff, I discovered something amazing. Interdimensional slavery. The pawn system. After a remarkable interaction with a glowing slab, I discovered that the dragon had indeed left me with something. The ability to command a vast army of involuntary helpers who would do as I say, not as I do. Guess I was still the hero after all. A true master of the multiverse, and so I resolved to go back on the hero's journey. Now I would only mercilessly attack villains in cold blood and smash their crate. After a little detour, some fun with the pawns and a little bit community service, die fox, I was ready to start my mission. I knew my first stop on the journey had to be more slaves. My mother always warned me about the dangers of not preparing well for any scenario. And just like George Washington, I knew this hero's journey would require a little help from my friends, whether they liked it or not. As I soon discovered, however, this would be no easy task. Unlike the good old days where you could just pay for some unpaid labor, I had to prove myself in a show of strategy and valor before I could claim the chains of unfreedom. So like 1950s America, I searched for a hidden enemy to fight. Luckily, the universe provided, and I vanquished this mighty foe, claiming my place as the only slave master in town. And I didn't take this responsibility lightly. As the chosen arisen, I had the opportunity to mold the world according to how I wanted it to be, a new order where justice reigned supreme and all people lived in harmony. So when I was given the opportunity to construct the leader of my stable, I decided my main man would be a strong, independent, well, not too independent. Hot Bomb was her name, and saving the world was her game. I was now truly ready to exact my revenge, and so I did so with style. With my bonded helpers in tow, I savaged enemy after enemy, raining down fire with a Promethean fury until I realized I had completely gone off track. It turns out being a hero involves more than wanton killing of all life and awesome fireballs. So I decided to start back from the beginning. And after I tracked back to the encampment for some in-game dialogue, what I found profoundly shocked me: a female captain. Guess I wasn't the only progressive master in town. Maybe it was just that time of the month. After the initial shock of this subsided, I realized I could turn this strong, independent woman to my advantage. Every hero needs a sidekick. And I knew the sheer strength of my masculinity would win over any pure maiden or even a feminist, and secure my passage. And it didn't take long for my charms to work. You see, she offered me the opportunity to rest pretty much immediately. But despite her clear intentions, fate had another idea. As I traveled to meet the captain in her chamber, I wasn't greeted by one head, but many. A gargantuan hydra suddenly emerged out of nowhere, hoping to claim my soul. So naturally, as it interrupted mine, I chopped off its head, but luckily things did not end here. You see, after heroically chopping off the head, I was tasked with a great burden in exchange for my passage: transportation. Hence my hero's journey truly began. Till next time, who knows what will happen. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you want a similar one for Dragon's Dogma 2. Peace.